So just to let you guys, I'm going to give you my fancy recording notice. We're recording this. If you don't want to be recorded, we'll see you later. All right. So we are going to talk today about creating your own positive arts experience. And this is not just for you receiving criticism, you dealing with competitions. This is also some ways that you can help create a positive arts experience for everyone as well. So I do want to kind of keep it a little interactive. So if you have questions, just let me know and we'll talk about it. All right. So we're going to start with the issues that we come up with competition. So when you think of arts and sciences competition, what's a word that comes to your mind?
Stress.
Stress.
And I have intimidated by the judging form.
A lot of people put anxiety.
Anxiety, yeah, nervous.
Nervous.
Preparation.
Okay, preparation. And that's probably spelled wrong. And then A.
Second, it's a second A, not an E.
That's what I was thinking. Okay. Anything else?
Documentation.
All right, that's a good start. So, except for documentation, because I love writing documentation.
There's one more. One more for unworthiness.
On the chat. On the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Okay, give me the ones for the chat I'm missing if I have.
I got. That's it.
Okay.
I got it. That's everything.
Those aren't terribly positive words. For some people, documentation is a dirty word. You know, I'm just like to write. So most of the time when we say arts and sciences competition, we don't think positive experience. We think of the stress we go to. We aren't always looking forward to this experience as we go on. So I want to talk a little bit about my artist journey. I became an apprentice. I guess it's been 30 years ago now when I first became an apprentice. And at the time, I was in college and did not realize that I was having mental health issues. I was had mixed episode bipolar disorder. I would do strange things for attention. And at times, it would cause problems with my arts journey when I was young. Eventually, I realized there was a problem and have been on medication for my issues for over 20 years now. And I don't have any episodes at all. I live pretty much a normal life. But I also have anxiety with that. And the anxiety is mostly controlled, but there are things that will trigger it. And I had to go a long way to understanding my triggers and what would trigger the anxiety to get beyond where I could control it in order to have a positive arts experience. And I really feel like the moment I got to the point where I had that anxiety trigger situation under control, I think at that point I thought, you know, I think I am ready to be a Laurel now. So it took me a long time, but I learned a lot along the journey. And to be honest, I think most Laurels will tell you the journey here is just as important as what you do after. So. All right, so we're going to start with a disclaimer. On one side, we have the Eye of Agamotto. This is the medallion of the Sorcerer Supreme, Dr. Strange, from all of the Marvel movie series. It imparts sorcerous knowledge and power. On the other side, we have a laurel medallion. Contrary to sometimes popular belief, it is not the Eye of Agamotto. It does not import sorcerous knowledge or power. So sometimes we get in a position where we're having to judge something or talk about something that we don't know about. So remember, you don't become all-seeing and all-knowing sorcerer the minute you become a laurel. It's very important. All right. So I have to say, at my vigil, Harold gave me the best advice of anybody that gave me any advice that day, which was, the SCA arts experience can make someone leave the SCA faster than any other activity that we do. Why is this? You don't have a way to resolve it as well, because if you're getting an experience from someone you don't know, you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know how to have that conversation necessarily. In fighting, you have a kind of bad experience with somebody, you just go kill them. And it's amazing how many friends that weren't your friends become your friends over a sword. And that's kind of the experience of sports, getting together, teamwork. It gives you a framework to have discussions and to get resolution to some issues. Also, we don't formally train anybody to give feedback in a positive way. And I know many people who will give feedback at times where they don't realize that it's very common areas that cause anxiety in people with anxiety. And I know full well that they didn't come over there to give anybody anxiety, but maybe this is never a good time. And we're going to learn some of those things as we go along. Unsolicited advice, not establishing your credentials, dressing down, not building up, and overstepping someone's bounds are the typical ways that you will take down somebody's art experience and make it not as positive. Okay? All right. So, receiving good critique. Know your triggers. One of my triggers is definitely Kingdom Arts and Sciences, and it is the number on the judging form. I got permission from Renee to tell, Master Renee, to tell this story because it might not make him in a good light, but it really helped. It made me laugh. So I was at a Kingdom A&S, and I got my judging sheet, and we were at Sea Winds, and it was a botanical garden. I was out in the garden by myself, just crying my eyes out over the judging sheet. And Renee, being just so sweet, he comes up and says, Bea, are you okay? How bad was it? And I said to him, I got a 48. And he just put his hands on his hips and said, bitch, please. And walked off. It made me laugh because it's 2 points off of perfect, but no matter what, that judging sheet is going to make me upset. Because even if you say you're the most wonderful artist ever, I'm going to read something stupid in that. Because 2 weeks from that, I will be able to read those comments. I grew up with a very critical, narcissistic mother, and I just read that stuff in a very bad way. So I have learned.
So Bea,
yes.
To qualify it for those that may not know, 48 out of 50.
Yes, that's true.
It's important to know the max.
Yes, the max is 50. So I got 2 points off of perfect, and I was still upset. Didn't realize this was going to happen. It just did. And so now I have an envelope. I take the envelope to Kingdom A&S. I get my judging sheets. I stick them in my envelope. I lick it, stick it, and hand it to somebody else, whoever went with me. and I don't look at them for 2 weeks. And if I got called up and I get a pilgrim's badge, I'm very, very excited because I didn't know. Or if I won the whole thing, I wouldn't know. But it's okay. That way I don't have to read anything in those comments that are not there, because it's just not, I'm going to read weird things in it. It's just not going to happen. Another way to minimize your anxiety is ask for feedback from those you trust. There are people that are not going to give me the kind of feedback I need the day of. As Brian used to say, what told me a couple of weeks when I was talking about doing this, Master Brian said his Grand Laurels, Mistress Serena, would go to him and say, do you want Mistress Serena feedback or do you want Grandma Laurel feedback? And at the day of Canada's is not the time to have the discussion most of the time. Advocate for yourself. If it is not a good time to talk about something, be honest up front. Look, I'm really stressed. I'm not going to hear you. Here's my email. Here's my number. Let's talk about this later. And if you feel like the competition is too much for you, you can display. You will get just as much largesse. You will get, if you leave out a little notebook, you can get comments. But if you don't feel like you're ready to go into competition, you have ways to get feedback without just jumping off the diving board with both feet. All right. Now, go ahead. Did you have
Sorry. I would, if you go to Kingdom Annis, ask the Shadow Judge. All the Laurels love having people come, but if you spend that time with a Laurel, going over the sheets, doing the thing, it's amazing how much they become human. The Laurel becomes human. You see what they're looking for. And if you don't have anything in display, then you're not competing against anybody else and going, oh my God, their embroidery is so much better than mine. Oh my God, their thing is so much more. You can just appreciate it and then go, oh, so I should put this in my documentation to make it better. And you can see what the Laurel process is in a where they're not judging your piece, and you can see how they treat this anonymous art piece that they're judging. You can kind of get that feel of how human they are.
Right. And so now we're going to give away the Laurel secret. We are human. We have doubts. We have imposter syndrome at times. We get behind in our research. Sometimes we haven't read the most current research you have because we need a break. We get burned out. We get tired and we get it wrong. We don't know a single thing about some arts, and somebody will ask us to judge it anyway. So just because a Laurel told you, you still have the right to question it, to take it to someone else to see if your feedback was good, because you may not know who specializes in what art. So that makes a big difference. Receiving good critique. These are the things that you should do. It is always okay to say you're not ready for critique. It is okay to take the critique and use the critique or not. Sometimes you will get something and you will get this note and it will be, I have no idea what piece that person looked at, and that was dumb, and throw the sheet away. Because maybe the person didn't really know anything about the art they were judging, and you know better, maybe. It's okay to do that. It's not okay to be mean about it, but it's okay to do it. Choose your mentors wisely. Choose people that understand you and know how to give critique to you and what works for you. When you are getting critique, or asking for critique, state your goals up front and tell someone what critique you're looking for. Do you want Grandma Serena critique? I can give you that. That is very pretty. You did really good today. I'm really proud of you. That's not trite. It's useful. But you're not ready to see here. You missed a spot. Do keep an open mind, because we've been down this path before. Sometimes you're going to hear things you don't want to hear. And usually things that I don't want to hear that come up are things I hoped you wouldn't notice, but you did. And so keep an open mind. Do remember, they're not trying to hurt you. They don't hate you. They're not your, psychotic brother who always tells you you're ugly. This is not something that they're doing. Oops. Oh, there we go. This is not something they're doing to hurt you. They're doing it to try to make you better. Do understand that sometimes they just don't understand your project. They may not. If you don't understand the feedback, you should ask yourself if your documentation is clear. And if you didn't attend Cin's class yesterday on the judging sheets, if those questions are not answered in your documentation that are on the sheet, you possibly will not do well. Ask yourself when you go back if you've answered everything correctly. It is okay to whip out a notebook and take notes. If somebody is somebody you don't see very often, let's say I'm from the deepest South, and this is a Kingdom A&S in Oklahoma, you might not see me very often up there up north. Take notes. It's okay. You want to remember these things. And do take care of your finishing. If you don't finish a piece properly, they will always know. And you need to always take care with your piece. Make sure you do all of the finishing steps, because this is an easy thing to do that will make your experience better, because no one will have to mention it. These are receiving good critique don'ts. Don't take critique at a high stress competition. If you know it's a high stress competition, have some cards made up, get some index cards, write out your information, and tell the person, look, I'm stressed. I really want to hear this. Let's get here later. Don't think your way is the only way. Nobody likes the yeah butter. You may learn something you didn't realize. Don't take it personally if you get a different response than you expected. Don't interrupt unless it's necessary, because especially if you don't know someone, it's rude and it's not going to get you what you want. Don't ignore feedback from someone you don't like. We always have the person that we don't get along with. I often have that one guy at work I don't get along with. But you know what he is? He's the person that tells me the one thing I didn't think about. It's not that I'm not going to ignore him because he mentioned something I didn't think about. So ignoring feedback from someone you don't like is not necessarily prudent. Don't think about your response. Actively listen. If you're listening to just respond, you're not taking in what someone is saying. You don't have to mention you have anxiety or any other mental health issue if you don't want to take critique at that time. You don't have to tell someone, I have this and this is my trigger and you're pushing my trigger. You just be polite, and you don't have to be uncomfortable and say anything about, if someone's pushing a button. Don't get confrontational. I saw an A&S competition where somebody threw something at the judge. That was confrontational. That was not very nice. It was also about 25 years ago. But yes, don't throw things at the judges and don't get confrontational. Don't think they are perfect. Please forgive a bad day. I have never been so exhausted in my life as the first time I did Kingdom A&S, as on the Laurel side and judging. We are exhausted. We may say, you may come to us for critique and we may have to say, I'm going to have to call you later because I have no idea what my name is right now because I'm so tired. So understand, Everyone is human. Any questions on that section?
We have
Senna,
a wacky question. What about adding a checkbox to the judging form for the judge to note this is an area they have an expertise, so that the issue of someone being asked to judge something they don't know well can be known by the person judged without a weird moment of, do you know this topic?
okay. I am a fiber laurel. I'm a music laurel. My area of expertise is fiber and music. I don't card weave, and I don't do Renaissance music as well as I do medieval music. So my expertise is in music, but it may not be in that music. You have to have someone self-aware enough to make that distinction. That unfortunately doesn't always happen. I try to make it clear on my sheet, like if I have to, let's say I'm judging tablet weaving. I will say on the sheet, this is not my particular weaving experience. I'm not good at it, but I still know what's good and bad card weaving. My problem is I have no attention span for remembering which direction those cards are going, and it's not going to change. Now, one of the nation's best card weavers has tried to teach me to card weave. It's never going to happen. So I don't think you're always going to get people being honest about it or being self-aware about it. But when we talk about giving good critique, this is something that we could cover there. Anything else?
I would say for that comment about adding a note on the judging sheet about the expertise of the judge, because some judges are not laurels, some judges are irises, some judges, you know, they do dual judging. It's a good question, or it's a good consideration. I know that, you know, over the 30 years of playing in the SCA, the judging sheets have gone through a tremendous number of evolution. And it's a point that I think the laurels here might take back to the group and consider it and discuss it as a possibility that they may want to add that to the sheets in future. But I also think once you get your judging sheet, if myself as an artisan is curious to see if that judge knows that expertise area, I can also go online and look at the Laurel's website, because it does list some of those expertise.
Yes.
And I can also go to that Laurel and talk to them, or Iris, whoever it is that's judging,
Agree.
and talk to them. So there are options there.
Anna,
Anacha.
Anacha, thank you.
One thing we observed in going through our sheets in North Shield was there are people who have expertise in different areas. One, they might know about material selection, but like they work in wood, but they don't necessarily know metalwork, and they're asked to judge metalwork. But the design or the aesthetic of the culture might be something they're familiar with. So the expertise isn't just on the subject of like tablet weaving. It is, are you familiar with 14th century brocaded tablet weaving, or do you do Norse tablet weaving? So the aesthetic, the historical aesthetic was also important to know too. And that helped focus people in understanding where their judges' expertise lay.
And it's part of a best practice of giving good critique. And we'll get into establishing your credentials properly in a couple of slides, or in a slide.
So the other thing about it is, on the day of the competition, it is what pieces are on the tables and what judges show up to the meeting room that morning. So at times there are all the fiber laurels in the world, and there are 3 items of random weaving, and everything else is metalworking, woodworking, fermented fish, things that are outside the normal purview, and we can't always have subject matter experts. It's a volunteer organization. But one thing that if you use the rubric, the judging form as your basis for your documentation and get feedback on it ahead of time, a competent judge should be able to use that sheet and give pretty accurate scores.
Yes.
Because you're presenting it to the judge in a good manner. So that does help. I am the queen of entering weird and random stuff. And so I get the kind of judges I get.
Well, and another thing that I do that not everybody does, or may not be aware, I judged a piece at Kingdom A&S that was in my one of my fields, which is poetry, but it was written in Middle French. Now, I speak modern French, so I took the copy, I went in the back, I got up my dictionary for the Sorbonne, and I went through the words. Yes, that all checks out. But what I was really checking out is, does the meter work for these words? Because that's very important in poetry.
Yes.
So we will go back and look things up if it's something we don't know. Thank God for the internet. So, yeah, you can do that. All right, let's talk about giving good critique. Ask the artist if they want critique. I know someone who said that they had a really bad experience at their first event because someone walked by in this beautiful Elizabethan dress and just dressed down the dress they were wearing at the time. That's not something you should do. Always ask the artist if they want critique on their item to make it better. Ask the artist what kind of feedback they're looking for. Ask them questions and let them show their joy. Offer a critique to get them to the next level and not perfection. I often find that sometimes I would get critique face to face that is, okay, well, you did this one thing, but if you want to be perfect, and then I was there for the next half hour, I couldn't remember all that stuff. And it overwhelmed me so much that I was wondering, why in the heck am I doing this art? Because now I'm stressed when I think about it, because be specific and offer sources. So one of the things that we all know is that there are well-known good sources for our particular arts. I know when I look at a fiber art entry, what authors, what books I expect to see there. I'm also someone who lives in the 4th largest city in the United States. I have ready access to all that. I don't necessarily, if I'm in a small town, I might not have access to that without a lot of interlibrary loan. And I think that offering sources that they may not know exist is always the best practice. So if I see card weaving, I will ask them, have you seen Cottingham's book on card weaving? You need to take a look at that, because that is the kind of the Bible of card weaving and what started the modern revival of card weaving. Very good information in that book. Or, yes, this is a book and it's a little outdated. Here's a better source that we know has come out in the last 5 years that talks more about certain things. So share your sources. Trust your gut. If someone has bad body language or their seat closed off, that's not the time to go talk to them. It's not. Ask yourself if you're the best person to have this conversation and let go of your ego. You may want to talk to somebody about that, but you know that you don't know that person well, and you don't know how to give the critique to them. Maybe you find somebody from their barony that knows them better and let them introduce you or give the critique for you. Start and end with a positive. It might be a disastrous piece, always find something good to say at the beginning of end, and don't just take something apart. I think that that's very important to kind of keep them to the next level. Say, this is a beautiful piece of weaving. You did really well of your color choice here. Your edges may need some little work, and I can show them a technique to make their edges better. You know, you really should stick with it. This seems like something that you enjoy and you should keep doing. That's a really great critique because it's given them something specific to work on, but they know they're on the right track. Apologize for any bad day or bad or off critique. You're human. I had a really bad day where I had a really bad headache back when I was an Iris, and I judged at a small competition, and I gave a critique on a sheet and I didn't explain it well, and I write really big, so I didn't have enough room probably, and I really upset the artisan with it. Now, I'm glad the artisan said that, you know, you really upset me with this. And once we had the discussion, they understood what the comment meant. And we were all good after that. But, you know, always be willing to apologize. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. Artist feedback don'ts. Don't be offended if they say no to feedback. Don't be offended if you write at the bottom of your sheet, I really want to talk to you about this later, and they do not reach out to you. Like I said, don't offer critique at a high stress competition. Even if they say yes, they may be doing it because, you know, they don't want to offend you, but it's just not a good time ever. Yes.
When you're saying critique, I'm a little confused. You're not talking about the actual feedback on the judging forum. You're talking about a private conversation afterwards.
Yes, face-to-face critique.
So not the information on the judging forum, which may be also a critique, right?
Yes. Now, you should probably always, you know, apply these rules to what you're writing, but you are going to have more, you're going to have to say to answer those questions back on the judging sheet. So I usually try to do my critique sandwich at my comments and impressions and use that to do my, like, this is the next thing you need to work on, but you are going to have to call out if it's weaving, you know, your edges are not even, your piece starts out 2 inches wide and ends up 1/2 inch wide. You know, the obvious things that are going to happen with weaving is because everybody weaves, so just about, so it makes for good examples. You are going to have to put more on a judging sheet than you may want to, but just some people like to just list everything. Try to be kind. And I know you are, Amada. I've gotten your judging before. So, never think your way is the only way. You know, I've had somebody surprise me on, you know, educated me with their research. I didn't know that about that kind of weaving. I didn't know that about that kind of spinning, you know? Yeah, we learn too. Don't rush through it. Try to give everybody some time. If you're going to have to, if somebody catches you, you're heading toward the bathroom, tell them you'll be right back instead of rushing through it, because you leave them with an impression that's not going to do anybody any good. Don't lie. I've seen people lie to artisans. It doesn't do anybody any good to do that. And I have to say, I judged a piece that was a piece of illumination and calligraphy. All of the elements were they were modern. They were very modern. They weren't with any style of, you know, illumination that we had in period. And I had to judge this. And I'm trying to think, what is the best way to say you should never put this on the table? And actually, I took it outside, I looked at it very carefully, and I realized this person had used watercolors. And my mother, for years and years, has been a watercolor and oil painter, and always impressed upon me the importance of knowing where your light is. Okay. The artist had done this painting and had beautifully shaded all this pink and purple and neon orange. Perfectly. You can always find something to say to get to the next step, and what I was able to do is say, okay, this is not what I would do for a subject matter for a scroll. Here's a suggestion of a book to take a look at for subject matters you might want to consider in the future. Your light is beautiful. You understand exactly where the light's coming from. Your shading is perfect. Focus on that. Focus on going to more period elements. And that person later came on and now does beautiful, beautiful period calligraphy. So everything is worth saving. Don't take it personally if you get a different response than you expect. If they lose their temper, throw something and run out of the room, don't take it personally. It's just maybe not the time. If you have a don't have public conversations with artisans about their items if you can help it. I've heard a couple of times where somebody sat down at a table at Kingdom A&S or at a competition with about 12 people at a big round table and then started to critique the person's piece. Well, no one else at the table knew anything about any of the two people they were talking to. Some of the people walked away and said, so-and-so was totally mean. It doesn't always serve you to do that. Because if you have to give news that they're not ready to receive, they don't necessarily want to receive it in public. So try to take them off to the side and try to be aware of who's around. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is artist block. Everyone has artist block from time to time. It's how we get out of these things that make the difference. So, actually, before we start into this, I should ask, does anybody have any more comments about giving good critique? I think we covered quite a bit, but I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance to answer. We good? All right, Cinda's nodding. All right.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, ways to deal with artist block. A lot of people, when they tell me I'm working on a Kingdom A&S project and I can't get it done in time and I can't get it done. I always ask them, look back, are you trying to do a project that is too big? So if somebody said, I'm going to do a project about medieval music in all time periods and all styles, and, okay, that's going to be a book and nobody's going to be able to read a book. What about that appeals to you? Okay, well, you want to talk about Elizabethan maybe versus ancient music and how they were different. That's a much narrower project. That's something you could do and compete in a time. But I've seen some really strange, large, I'm trying to explain all of history. And that's a lot of times that will give you artist block because you don't know where you're going with that. Spreading out what you're working on can help you from dealing with block and burnout. Work on more than one project at a time. Switch between diverse projects. When I get bogged down in doing music, I will go spin for a while. And that can give me a new, fresh idea. Be methodical about it. Love your process, not the deadline. Sometimes we decide, okay, I have a project, it's going to be for Kingdom A&S, and I'm struggling the night before to finish it and it's not my best work. Maybe I try now to skip that A&S. If I don't feel like I've put the proper time in it, I'll skip that one and it'll be for the next time. It will still be here. And let the project choose the date if you have problems with that. Process your passion. What do you really love about this art? Sometimes we I realized toward the end of me doing a lot of the weaving I had done that really I love spinning. I don't like weaving. Don't like doing it. I love to warp the loom. I love to watch the loom work. So when people ask me what kind of weaver I am, I say, you know what really is my passion about weaving is I'm fascinated with the machines and how they work. So I can tell you why your weaving is different on a Greek upright loom as opposed to a slanted Viking one. They're both warp weighted. You know, how that technology works is what really is my joy in it, not the actual product. So know that about yourself. You may be doing something that you really don't enjoy, but you only like one aspect of it. Use. There are tools to get you out of writer's block. And we're going to talk about a lot of those in a minute. So use a tool, talk to a friend, phone a friend. You could get out of artist block doing that. So one really good way to break down a project and see if it's too big is called mind mapping. This is not something I do well myself, but a lot of people have told me this is the best way that they have planned their project out. Mind mapping, there's programs that will do this, and it's basically the concept is start with an idea and then branch it out into its little components and break it down and keep breaking it down until you have something specific. So these are some ideas of how to start that, but really there's really good books and software out there. If you think this way and this will be helpful, take a look at it, because I think more people have told me this helps them than any other format. It just isn't something that works particularly for me. Does anybody actually ever use this and have good luck with it? Want to share? If you want to know all about mind mapping and how to make it work, Master Martin is the mind mapping king. He can definitely tell you how to use this technique to the best of your ability. All right. Artist prompts. So sometimes we're looking for an idea of something creative. I want to write a story. I don't have an idea. I want to draw something. I don't have an idea. There are tons of artist prompt lists out on the internet that will give you ideas, give you ideas about writing or drawing or doing themes. So let's say I was trying to do a scroll. I didn't have a theme. I could go to this drawing challenge and say, okay, mythical creatures. That's an idea. Puppets, dolls. I could make that work. I could find examples for that. You're not going to find outdated robots, very helpful. But maybe you might get another idea from that. Outdated robots, you know, I could do broken looms, boxes that are broken. You know, you can always start somewhere and get somewhere else.
There was a suggestion that Pinterest is a good place to look for prompts.
Yes, Pinterest is.
Be aware of using it for research, but for prompts, it's great.
Yes, it's a great place for prompts. I hate the fact that Pinterest floats up to the top of your Google when you're looking for a book, and I'm looking for the book that's here. So just to let you know, if you push minus and then Pinterest after what you're searching for, it will take all that out. If you're looking for Pinterest, this is great. But yeah, if you're not looking for Pinterest, that's how you remove it. Just a little tip. This is the thing that I use the most, which is cards. cards for research, cards for prompts, cards for ideas. So I like to read a lot of nonfiction in the subjects that all kinds of subjects. So I keep index cards around and I will stick them in the book and I will say, that's a really interesting topic. That would make a really good A&S paper. I don't have time for that right now. So I take the card, I write down why I thought it was a good idea at the time. I also recommend, if you live in a house with other people who might read books, writing the page number it was on, because sometimes the cards fall out of the books, or Etienne takes them out and puts them in the front. So write your page numbers. But it's a good way to go back. Anytime you see something that you say, that was interesting, put a card in it. I've had times when I've gone back and said, 2 years ago, I'm sure I read something about that, and I'll find it. So prompt as you go with cards. Cards for research. I use cards when I'm doing my research to write what I think I'm going to use this for and leave it in the book, in my book stack when I'm writing papers. And then there's cards for clearing your thoughts. And I'm going to show you one of the tools that is very good for this. There are lots of these out here. There's cards that give you ideas. There's the Einstein method. There's one for Nikola Tesla themed, but the original ones of this was called Oblique Strategies. Brian Eno, who is a ambient experimental synthesizer artist from the 70s, originally from the 70s, still produces. Many of you who like music, he probably produced at least one of your favorite albums. Very big in the music industry. And he created this with his friend, Peter Schmidt, who is a visual artist, on prompts when things aren't going well, which can be very difficult when you're working with artists. And it's very strange, esoteric stuff, but it's amazing how well it can sometimes make you do something that works. So go outside and shut the door. Okay, that doesn't sound very helpful. When I first started off with this, I printed off the little things and thought, I'm having writer's block. People tell me this works. And I got, go outside and shut the door. All right. And I sat outside on the front bench and I came up with an idea because I went to a different place where I was free of all the distractions. I don't know what he meant by that, but that's what it meant to me and it worked that time. It may mean something different later. I may go outside and see a purple car and decide I need to incorporate purple into something. But it gives you a way to kind of clear your mind. So what I've done is, if you want to try this, I'm going to put the presentation out in Facebook and you can click and print off your own set. Or you can buy them from him, but I'm not going to buy $40 worth of cards that I can print out. So the last idea, and this is one I got from Delphina, is doing an arts journal. When you first start an art, you can record how you were going through the process. You make yourself accountable for practicing. This is something that works very well for musicians. Did I go through that piece today? Did I do my scales? If I'm starting to see my practice list and I don't have the checks on it, should I be upset with myself if I don't play well because I didn't do the work. You can write words of encouragement to yourself. It does not have to be paper. You could keep it on a blog. A lot of people seem to use blogs for this kind of work. You can do a wiki. You can use your phone notes. You can do it on Facebook. Technically, you could start your own artist page and start blogging in public. There are lots of ways you could keep a journal and keep yourself accountable. And sometimes it's good to say, okay, I started here. I see progress. I see that when I first started weaving, I couldn't keep my edges straight, but now my edges are really straight. And I have a picture of that in my journal. So there are many ways you can use journals to help with artist block or when you feel like you have not achieved what you're looking for. It allows for goal setting as well, which is very helpful. All right. Any questions? I know this was a lot of information, but does anybody have any questions on working with artist block? Or any suggestions on things they do for artist block?
I know there's a software that some artisans in Brindlewood have found helpful called Trello. And it's just a way of organizing your work. You're talking about using cards. It's basically virtual cards.
Right.
You name a little bulletin board for a project and you make cards of all your steps and things that you have to do and you can check them off and stuff. People have found that useful. Trello.com.
You know, it didn't occur to me to use that. I use that at work all the time. It's called Kanbaning. Your doing, done process thing. Yeah, that's a really good, I never thought about managing my arts project. You know, then I could probably not run out of time before Kingdom A&S. But
and
no,
you can share boards with other people. If you're working on a project with someone else, you can both see the same board if you need to. So
that is a great idea. I'm definitely putting that in here. Project manage yourself. Senna, do you have any particular methods you use for when you get stuck on something? Since you do something.
Sometimes I'll start with the outline of what I want to do. So just kind of keep it, here's this, and then not quite bullet points inside. They're going, okay, here's the intro. Here's the stuff that I can already have. If you're having blocks, some of the stuff you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. If I do tablet weaving, my brief history of tablet weaving, 2 paragraphs with a picture and a citation already just goes in. So I don't have, I know that it's worded well. I know it works. So don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. If you're doing the same art, the research you've done and the stuff that works well, you do not have, it's your own work. You can quote yourself. It's not plagiarism to quote yodon't saying, right, this is what I say, this is how I do it. Now, if somebody gives you new information and you need to change it, then obviously don't keep the same information for the last 20 years of stuff. It might need to be reworked. But as you get your voice, you'll know the stuff, you'll know how you say it, and you go, that was really good in that thing I did 2 years ago. Well, then cut and paste it. It's your work. If you've done a project, the other thing I often do is look at what I've done before and go, oh yeah, I was going to do that again, but I was going to try something new or get the critique that I've gotten and try to do it again. So I kind of go look back at the list of projects and see if I want to revisit it. If I'm feeling completely, I want to do something. What do I want to do? I want to do something. Look at the old projects and go, oh yeah, I was going to try doing it in silk. I was going to try changing up the design. But if you have things you're used to doing, you can go back to your own the old inspiration and see if something new jumps out. And that way, and if you've already got a judging sheet where somebody has told you, great job with color choice, great job with these things, focus on these other, they may have already given you an avenue to explore. And a year later, when your brain is a totally different spot, that avenue to explore can either be, oh, great, awesome, or, well, that's just dumb. But instead, they should have said it should have been this avenue to explore, but you can use them as that jumping off point, that go to a new location. You can revisit it as it's all new, but without any of the emotional investment. It's a lot, hindsight makes it a lot easier to go, why did they give me a 6? That makes no sense. I can prove 5 other ways that I was right. Yeah. Well, for the next project, prove it 5 other ways that you were right, and the next sheet will be better. So
yeah. And that's why I don't throw the sheets out. I put them in the envelope and read them better, because there will be suggestions that I won't see as you're ugly and terrible and you should never do this again, which is what shows up on those sheets miraculously the day of Kingdom A&S. And it's very useful 2 weeks later when you're not as emotionally invested. But actually, one of the things that I definitely do as well is I have a paper for my sestinas I'll rewrite why the theme is period, but I'm not going to rewrite how you do with Sistina. It hasn't changed in 1,000 years. A Sistina is still a Sistina. So, and it's not going to change. So you will always you can find new things in your own papers. Geraldo, you got any ideas? How do you work with when you get artist block, or do you?
He may have disappeared.
He's still here. He may not be able to, he may have his hands full and not able to reach the button because, he's out in the shop. So, but okay. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate your attention today. I hope this was helpful for those giving critique and receiving critique. I'm going to try to work to do this better myself every time I judge. And it's a growing thing. So if you come up with any ideas for like the Trello idea for writer's block and judging, let me know and I can add it. All right. You're welcome. My recording did not stop.